So this particular video is by request of one of my followers, Houston. So I'm going to deal specifically with your team, Houston, the Chicago Bears, a little bit about their cap situation, their roster situation, and the philosophy, as I understand at least thus far, of their new general manager, Ryan Poles, who I remember as a player. So another feel-old moment for me. But yes, let's get back to the Bears. The Bears are a team that is in, whether they've announced it or not, essentially a rebuilding mode. They have 141,701,351 in active contracts, and so added to that $46,145,000 and $425 in dead cap. They had over almost $2 million in rollover. So they have about 23 a little over $23 million in cap space to work with now, and they should have a little bit more when they're done with this because it's clear that Ryan Poles is clearing space. He wants to be a player, not so much this year, but I believe next year in free agency. Plus, you've got players to sign that'll come out of the draft. Now, as of this very moment, the draft will be projected, unless something changes, to be pick number 39 in the second, pick number 48 in the second, pick 71, pick number 148, pick 150, and pick 186. Now, using my very much own board and rankings, so this is not anybody else's but me, so I take full responsibility for it being good, bad, or indifferent. Excuse me. You'd have an opportunity to draft Sky Moore from Western Michigan. Very dynamic. Probably find his way to the slot at the NFL level, 5'9" and 5'8", 195 pounds, 4'1" in the 40. Fast, explosive, terrific also in special teams. I wouldn't mind, if I were a Bears fan, getting Sky Moore snapped up right there. And then my 48th player is Arnold Ibakity from Penn State by way of Temple Tough. A very long-armed, powerful defensive end who I think has the capability of being a 5.5 to 7.5, maybe even 8 sack guy once he fully develops. He'll never be a guy that leads the NFL in sacks, but he's a guy who will give you good, solid production, also good against the run. So if we're sort of continuing down that path, other players that should be available where they're picking, if we're looking also for them to make a selection, in the third round, they'd have a shot at people like Sean Ryan, the tackle / guard, depending on how you evaluate him, from UCLA. Kobe Bryant, corner from Cincinnati. Another corner, Tariq Woolen from UTSA. I have a lower grade on most people on Trevor Penning. Some people have him towards the first, even in the first. I do not. I think he should be available here at this point. But if he's not, if you still want to get a very athletic tackle, Keelan Deitch from Arizona State, 6'7" and 8, 301 pounds, 4'8'9" in the 40. 32.5-inch vert, super impressive for a man that size. 9'2" broad, 4'4'3" in the short shuttle. I think he'll need some development, but we're talking about a guy that I think could be a really good to maybe even very good left tackle for years and years to come. Then with the pick in the 5th round, that'd be pick 148. Players that I am projecting would be available based on my own personal board, which is not like everybody else's, so that's fair warning. Players like Kyle Phillips from UCLA, DeMarco Jackson from Appalachian State, C.J. Verdell, the running back from Oregon, cornerback / safety from Fayetteville State, Josh Williams, running back Rashad White from Arizona State, and outside linebacker Jesse Luketa from Penn State. And I'll finish up with one other guy who truly intrigues me for the Bears, and that's Eric Johnson from Missouri State. And my notes for him were things like Luke Cage. I was half joking, but he's got some Eric Swan to him. Very powerful, obviously a small school prospect, so on his tape in college, he's throwing people around like empty garbage cans. But even at the Senior Bowl, against a higher level of competition, you could still see him showing that he had the ability to do a little bit of pass rush. He could probably play 4-eye, a little bit of 5 technique even. He could play, even though he's a big guy, he's a good enough athlete to play 3 tech. He could kick inside in special packages, I mean, even further inside, and do 0, cock nose shade, or 1 in your, dragster, Formula One, whatever you call your your package where you're putting a bunch of guys who can get pressure on the quarterback. And then obviously all those players I just mentioned will be still, some of them will still be able to pick 150. And I'll throw into the mix guys like tight end K. Otten. I think safety Nick Cross may have pushed himself above this place because of what he did at the combine. But Jacoby Durant, a great little nickel from South Carolina State, who I'm a huge fan of, should be available there. Tyrese Freifogel from Indiana. Cordell Flott, another small but active DB. Michael Clemens, defensive end from Texas A&M. Cordell Volson, the other offensive lineman from MDSU, should be able to run that point. If you're still looking at tight ends, Charlie Kohler from Iowa State, or another tight end, Greg Dulcich from UCLA. Safety Brian Cook from Cincinnati. And another player I'm a huge fan of is Calvin Austin III from Memphis. Is he small? Yes. He's 5'7", 3/4", 170. But he ran a 4.3 240. He has about a 39-inch vert, so he plays taller. Once again, dynamic in the special teams. And I just think if you get him in the 5th or 6th, you're going to be very thrilled. I don't think he lasts till 6th. He could actually go before here, but it's a deep wide receiver class, and he is very small. I'll finish up with people who might be available at pick 186 for the Bears. Now, once again, some of this is contingent upon who you didn't get in the earlier rounds, but players I think might be available at this point. Someone like Damian Daniels, defensive tackle from Nebraska. Tyquan Thornton, wide receiver. Really, I think he's more of a special teams guy from Wake Forest. Offensive guard Andrew Stuber from Michigan. Running back Pierre Strong from SDSU. Myron Tagovailoa Amosa, the cousin of Tua and Tulia. Center Luke Fortner from Kentucky. Jalen Naylor, wide receiver from Michigan State. Zachary Carter, defensive tackle from Florida. Mario Goodrich from Clemson. Brock Hoffman, offensive guard / center from Virginia Tech. Zachary Tom, who may have pushed himself above this is a great combine, but if he's available. Owen Carney, actually you can probably wait a little bit on him. Give you one or two others. If Isaiah Weston, he won't be there. Scratch that. Caleb Evans, corner from Missouri. Bubba Bolden, once top safety prospect for Miami. You didn't have quite the career that people were expecting. Matt Hendrickson, from defensive tackle from Wisconsin. Another defensive tackle, Matthew Butler from from Louisiana Tech. Wait, hold on. I know this. Butler. No, he's from Tennessee. I was right. Making myself crazy for no reason. Yes, Tennessee. Alexander Wright from UAB. Alexander Wright's a project, but I think he'll be something one day. And I'll give you two last players. Monteric Brown's corner from Arkansas and Jakari Roberson, wide receiver from Wake Forest. They're all players that should be available with that last pick. And once again, they may move around the board. And then last but not least, just a little bit about the philosophy of Ryan Poles. I think you're going to like a lot of what you get from Ryan Poles. Once again, I scouted him when he was an offensive lineman at Boston College. He didn't stick in the pros, but it worked out just fine for him. And I like this. So he was asked specifically about two things. He was asked about what they do in terms of analytics. And he essentially said that they take everything into account, but they really only get concerned when a guy falls outside of their range, right? So their analytics team looks at, historical precedent for a position and the guys that have succeeded, based on height, weight, speed, 3-cone, bench, 40, all that stuff, right? And put us out a profile. And if a guy they like falls within it, they essentially do no more work. However, if a guy is outside of that range, for some reason he's not fitting the profile, they do more work. You go back to the tape, you go back to find out if a guy's coming off an injury or things like that. Then last but not least, I want to quote him about his philosophy of addressing need versus best player available. Here's what he had to say. Generally speaking, you do want to stick to best available. I think that's how you capture the value that's best on the board. Then all things being even between four guys, if there's one position that you need and it's a premium position, you just adjust to that. I don't think that's different or revolutionary, but I think it explains how he sees the game, what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. I think he wants to get this team more athletic and younger. And that makes sense. I think that's what most people want. So hopefully, Houston, that answers a lot of your questions. I'll move on and talk about another person very dear to my heart who has questions about the Philadelphia Eagles next.